Hello and blessings, and welcome to Be Well Rebellion podcast episode. I don't know the number, I've already lost count. Today I wanted to talk about human history. Well, the history of man, really. The history of mankind, human, mighty men, all these different factions of beings that we have here. I want to start off by saying I think everything that I'm going to talk about is a product of, shamanic journeys where I might have seen some things that got me researching ideas that I otherwise probably wouldn't have encountered. And research that followed and my own direct experience. And I'm kind of spitballing here, but I'm also I'm pretty well read on some of this, and there's a lot of things that I didn't want to know for a long time, or maybe that popped into my timeline that I wasn't ready to know, that I eventually had to kind of wrap my head around because I couldn't ignore it anymore. So if you're like me and you're on the path of, like the gnosis, it kind of pops into your mind or your timeline, and you have to pay your attention to it and figure it out. Like, eventually you just have to. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about white people and dark-skinned people, men and women, males and females. Not everybody here is the same. We've got like a demographic of men and women, and we have a demographic of males and females. And I talked about these in my last videos, but some people might be kind of confused. So I just wanted to share some of the ideas that I've stumbled upon. And just for your consideration, I don't think that you should believe anything that I say ever. I don't think you should really just blindly believe anything anyone says. Even the people who love you, they can still be mistaken. And then people all over the world will try to deceive you for all different types of reasons. It's not it's not just a matter of good versus bad. It's a matter of various types of DNA manifesting. DNA is not necessarily something that is fixed. It's something that is programmable. It's something that is hackable. It's something that is upgradable. So, consider that when you think about other people and how they might have interacted, with your DNA, or how you might interact with your own DNA, right? The words you speak to yourself, the ideas that you... I'm going to turn this heater on because it's kind of cold. I hope it's not too loud. But all kinds of things affect how your DNA presents. So I just want to talk a little bit about that. I got heavy into studying the Bible, and it was not at all because I am a Christian, but because I see it as a tool for manipulation for most of the population, and I wanted to know how and why and by whom and against whom. Really anybody that falls for it. But and I'm not saying the Bible's not real. I'm saying anybody who falls for whatever program is being pushed that they use the Bible for, right? So, and I think that's something that you have to kind of wrap your head around. In this realm, a lot of truths are used to push lies, and like, if it's not a whole truth, it's a lie, okay? So, or dissect it, understand why it might be being put in your timeline if it's not true, if everything else that particular source is citing is true. Why does that Judas goat exist, and how does it affect you, right? So think about those things. First I want to talk about skin color. I think a lot of people are being really fucking silly about skin color. So let's just break it down. White people, you are fucking hybrids. You're hybrids. Because if you think about it, this Earth is relatively close to the sun by comparison to the rest of the planes or planets, however you want to refer to them. And I really think they're more like little biodome bubbles in this vast ocean of space. That's kind of how I see it. So like, I don't care if you want to call them planes of existence or levels of consciousness or whatever, or planets. We live on Earth, and Earth has, the sun, and the beings that the Earth naturally peoples, right? Because the Earth, I like to think, like, just like Alan Watts was saying, like the Earth peoples, the Earth trees, the Earth plants, the Earth animals, like it creates these things, right? So the ordained people created on the Earth originally, I think they were dark skinned. I think you have to be, right? You have to have melanin so that your body can operate with the sun. And I think that people are talking about this a lot right now because there must be some show on Netflix or something that people are watching. And I think that's like ramping up the discussion. So it's like why I want to do this. That's a side note. But anyway, back to it. So originally the people of the Earth had to have melanin. That's what they were. They were dark. So because melanin for the body is like chlorophyll for a plant. So it takes the sun and it turns it into energy. And these people with melanin, they have carbon bonds in their bodies for their DNA, so that everything, carbon is what basically all life forms are made from. So it's like the building block, right? And then all these other like minerals would build off of the carbon. So these carbon bonds, right? So they're melanated people with carbon bonds. And then at some point, like a rogue faction of beings came. And like, honestly, I've read and like heard that they are, like actual beings. But I sometimes wonder, like, were they parasites or something? I don't know. Because they came and they created the moon. And the moon was created as a worship to harvest and harness. Sorry, more like harness and then harvest feminine energy, because I think that a lot of people are talking about it right now, and it's something I've been researching for a few years. But I actually think originally all the people on this earth were women, right? In the womb, woman, not female, but women come first. So first is the XX, and the Y is a variant, right? So first, like if that's a microcosm of existence, and the macrocosm, of course, first we had women, and then came men. Now, like, there's a lot of discrepancy about maybe why women created men, or like why men were created from women. And I think, my personal opinion, is that when the moon was brought here on, I think it was like day 4 in Genesis, it caused like the women to begin to have a cycle, a menstrual cycle. So instead of creating through parthenogenesis, that was that she was the proprietor of the entire process, instead now she's like harnessed, or it's tethered to like a cycle. And as a result, she menstruates monthly according to the moon. And somewhere along the lines there, like I said, I don't know if this was like introduced by actual beings manipulating some DNA, or if it was like a certain breeding program, or if it was like a hijacking of her energy, or if it was a parasitic type of invasion in her body. But it seems like, according to the structure of the bodies and the intricacy of the patterns of DNA and brain activity and whatnot, it seems like males were like a mutation, or like a somehow males were created. And I don't know if it was really a choice, that first round of males. I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure. Like, I can't tell you, but like something came, right? And males were born. And then it seems that women we're tasked with the responsibility of like raising these males to be like wise, right? I call it an intact yin, but like we had to kind of like women had to make sure their mitochondria was working on behalf of these new beings that were here. Like you can't just, it's not like men just arrived and they were like parasitic or something. No, it's that they just arrived. Okay, so then the woman's DNA, the woman's mitochondria responded to this environment where obviously she was under some sort of energetic type of attack, and she has to birth the antidote to that, right? Like when we talk about what's going on in the world, all this rape, murder, all that kind of stuff, it's not all men, but it's always men, like it's always males. So women are tasked with the responsibility of paying attention to their environment and recognizing, what's a threat and what's not a threat. Who is here for the cause and who has lost the plot. Okay, so we have to have discernment, and as a result, women are birthing all sorts of conscious men. I actually really think that obviously already exists. There are conscious men and good men that exist, really divine, masculine men. But by and large, the collective needs some work. No offense. I mean, I'm going to get to everybody else later. Nobody's safe. But anyway, yeah, so women have to use their mitochondria to kind of understand, like, call a spade and be honest with ourselves and do the dirty work to kind of vet this population. Because I'm gonna go on a limb and say, ladies, if you're not happy with the state of the world in terms of like the male population, understand that you birthed it, understand that you mated with it, you condoned it in your unhealed state. And I'm talking to myself too. I mean, like, if anybody who's seen my last videos, like, I married an abuser. I married somebody who like ended up fully attacking me and my children. So, and when that happened, you know what I did? You know what I was really thinking? I was thinking about his mother, and I was just like, fuck you, bitch. Why would you birth this? Why would you put this out into the world? I just want to say that a matriarch knows what energies are like worthwhile in this world and what energies need to fucking die. And if you are raising a child and you have any kind of idea that he might grow up to be an abuser, like, do something about it. As a mother, do something about it. Or you're unleashing the very energy onto the world that you don't want to encounter. Anyway, that said, I really think as women we need to take responsibility for the male population. And that's not to say like you cannot too many of us are actually married to and having children with these abusers. And then we're stuck co-parenting with them even if we separate. And like, some of us, not all of us obviously, but a lot of us are stuck co-parenting with them and still allowing these abusers to have access to our children. And I just want you to take responsibility. Take responsibility. Like, my ex-husband's mother helps him hide from paying child support. And his sister, like, those are women that are like the amount of women that I know that are like, oh no, I don't agree with abusing women or children or whatever, but my husband, oh yeah, he's a terrible guy, but I kind of like, I do my part. I understand because I also was one of those women that was like, I need to stay with this man because I don't want to subject my children to him alone. I get it. I understand how hard it is to leave. I understand how hard it is to like risk co-parenting. I understand how shitty of a situation it is when you have to admit, like, I made a mistake and I actually brought children into this world that might perpetuate the energy of this motherfucker that I never should have let touch me. Do you know what I'm saying? And there is a lot of power in that. First we are humbled and then we are redeemed. And the bioresonance from your mitochondria deciding, like, your body, you say in your inside you say, like, enough is enough. I'm tired of this bullshit. I want to repent thoroughly for everything that I've done that contributes to the shitty parts of the world, even starting in my own home. Okay, I perpetuated the bloodline of this asshole. What am I gonna do about it? And this is not. I'm addressing this because this is exactly how it happens. Sometimes collectives are overtaken by other collectives, and the women are the spoils of war. What happens when women are the spoils of war? That creates certain bloodlines. So anyway, back to it. Originally, everyone was melanated, and some rogue something came. Originally, everyone was women, and some rogue something came, okay? And this rogue something, like, infiltrated the female population, created males, not men. Men, I feel like, are coming later, or maybe some were already there. It's like a dubious thing because history is not really what we think it is. Like, when we're, like, the Garden of Eden, for instance, there was other people already here. So use your brain. Use your brain and, like, just use your discernment. So back to it. So ultimately, women need to take responsibility for this kind of situation that we found ourselves in. It's just like most abusive relationships go, okay? At first, he's not coming in being like, oh, fuck you, cunt. No, he's not starting off. That's not what the foot he's leading forward with. He starts off really nice and love bombs and is, his best self. And then slowly the mask slips over time and you kind of just find yourself in a situation that you're like, how the hell did this happen? And what do I need to take responsibility for to get out of it? And that's kind of the situation we find ourselves in right now. Like, as a collective, not just women, but, like, because there are good men, good women, but it's this evil stuff that is happening in the world, I'm going to say again, is not all males, but it's always male. You know what I'm saying? So it's going to be divine masculine men that, like, put these males in their place. And honestly, I mean, I've talked to some friends who have been in similar situations as me, and I really think that some of us are birthing the sons that are going to destroy that father that's rogue. I really do. And I saw that in my own home. Like, I'm just gonna touch on this for a second. When I got pregnant with my son, like, I knew it was a boy. I already knew years prior. But anyway, when I got pregnant, I was like, I know it's a boy. And I remember my ex being, like, really turned off by that idea. And part of me was like, oh, I think he just didn't want to actually be, like, a real dad, because with the girls, he could always pass them off to me, but this was a boy who's going to have to connect with. And now the more I sit with it and the more journeys I've taken, the more I've meditated on it, like, I really think that I birthed the boy that is going to grow to the man if I do my part right. If I, like, take responsibility and I don't outsource raising him to anybody who is going to mistreat him or mislead him. I really do think that I birthed the type of energy that's going to wipe out the kind of energy that was attacking us before. And I think that's like that I think a lot of women can agree with me right now on this. Anyway, back to it. So ultimately, this demographic was infiltrated, and there was also a lot of wars. There's this dude, Jonathan Mercedes, and he's very smart, and he is somebody who studies ancestry, and he wrote a book called The Blood Wars, and I highly recommend it. But it's describing, all these different factions of dragons, Draco, elves, Anunnaki, which is kind of a general term, but the EGG, like all kinds of things that came to this earth and mated with humans. And then there is also, of course, Enki and Enlil. Enlil's the god of the Old Testament, the warlord of the Old Testament. He's the narcissist god, the jealous god, which, like, I don't even know why you would, like if I was gonna worship a god, like, what the fuck would he be jealous of? I'm not sure. But anyway, so yeah, that's Enlil. Rogue patriarch. And then there were just wars, right? There was different factions, the Syrians and the Pleiadians and whatnot. And that's the thing about indigenous Americans. They're mostly, the melanated indigenous Americans. They are, I think, the origin of humanity. Because if you look at the Grand Canyon, I think that's the only place in the world where there is actual temples from, like, all kinds of populations and religions and stuff. Like, that's a spot. I think humanity was birthed from there. Like, I'm not an expert on this. This isn't really my, like, thing, but I saw a lot of things on a shamanic journey. On shamanic journeys, I read a lot. I listened to other people, and there's too many dots to ignore. So you just look this stuff up. If it's something that strikes you as odd or you disagree with, look it up or message me. And, like, I'm cool with being corrected. Like, I'm just putting this out there. But anyway, back to it, right? So Enlil, rogue patriarch, created the moon. Harness, harvest, feminine energy, and then you've got mutation that resulted in males that have, over time learned a lot of things and a lot of skills and a lot of divine ways of being. And I think that there is a wonderful population of masculine men that are about to have a very, very positive effect on this whole demographic. But anyway, continuing on, so within all those hybrid groups, we have mtDNA from the indigenous Americans that are dark-skinned. And I say indigenous Americans, not indigenous and not Africans, because I think that the Africans they have more Syrian blood, if I remember correctly, whereas the indigenous Americans have slightly paler faces, different textured hair, because they have Pleiadian mtDNA. The Pleiadian mtDNA is the, like, good stuff with the carbon bonds that keeps life lifing, right? So if you are born through a womb, no matter what your skin color, you've got some of that mtDNA, right? You've got some earthborn DNA, and that's good because you need that for empathy. You need that for connecting with the earth and other beings. There's so much power in that, and it's a beautiful, beautiful thing, right? Empathy. And that's Pleiadian DNA is where that came from. And so then you've got, and that's based on, right, carbon bonds. And those carbon bonds are the life-lifing. Now, anytime there's a race or a demographic that was created through DNA manipulation that was not born through a womb, well, they for sure have not carbon bonds, but sulfur bonds. And there's a really, really great account on Instagram that I will tag because you should check her out. I can't remember the name of the account off the top of my head, but she is talking about these carbon bonds versus sulfur bonds, and she's doing the research, and you should go check it out and see if it makes sense to you. So I'm not going to spend too much time on the carbon versus sulfur bonds, but ultimately sulfur bonds are basically made for mankind, like a kind of man, but not the ordained man, or the DNA pattern that needs sulfur, like it's like a man-made bond, which breaks down over time. And so sometimes I think these sulfur bonds are like from the patriarchal side most of the time, because I know that father's DNA will like erode over time and degrade over time, whereas the mtDNA, the mother's line, is something that endures and passes on a lot of genetic information. So, you know, it's because there are so many different types of hybrids. I think there are people with like, you know, a variety. I'm not totally sure about this, but understand that, you know, when you think about the sun, when the sun shines, it burns away whatever is synthetic, and it actually like upgrades whatever is real, like carbon, right? So if you, so I think more than just melanin, I think more than just it being a distinction of melanin, I think it's a distinction of carbon or sulfur bonds, like she's talking about. And I agree with her fully, because I think there are a whole lot of dark-skinned people that aren't actually operating as friends of the earth. And I think that there are actually some white people that you know, are all apologists and whatnot, but you're actually dragons here to help. So I would really like for everybody to stop deciding who is on your side and not on your side according to skin color alone, because it's just, you're falling for the psyop. I mean, it was originally dark-skinned people selling out other dark-skinned people for genetic manipulation to create white-skinned people so that these bad dark-skinned people could hide behind this white scapegoat, which guaranteed, I mean, some of those white scapegoats totally played the part. I'm not even gonna say that they didn't. Of course, some of them are just diabolical. But that's part of the bloodline thing. With the DNA manipulation, some people cannot empathize. And some people will empathize to death because they can't incorporate like wisdom into their approach. So you've got like factions of dragons that are like chaos magic dragons or like dark magic dragons. And there are dragons here that are like white dragons that are here to help. But it varies. So you really, what I'm getting at is like, you can't look at somebody's skin color and know necessarily what kind of energy they're working with, what kind of empathy levels, and what kind of consciousness they are working with. Our consciousness is tied to the consciousness of the earth, the geo-electromagnetic sphere of the earth, and there is, you know, a toroidal field of magnetism. And from what I understand, during these blood wars, the southern pole of the magnet, like, was weakened or died, and that actually resulted in us all not living as long. It disturbed the ability of the carbon bonds to, you know, go on and live forever or for much, much longer as maybe was ordained originally. So I'm kind of rambling, I guess, but like I just wanted to clear some things up. Like, it's really hurting to watch men and women fight, because ultimately, like, we are supposed to be on the same team. Like, as I was saying before, if Genesis, I mean, in the Bible it says one day is as 1,000 years, and the moon was created on day 4. If we're on day 6, if the Bible was written 6,000 years ago and we're on day 6, that's the day that man was created. So maybe man's still in a vetting process, right? Maybe like the divine masculine is still not totally birthed yet, because the divine feminine is still kind of hiding. I don't know, you know? It's funny though, because I find myself like alone at a time when everybody's like, oh, you know, you should not be a single woman right now. You need a man around. You need a man, because Men are going to be the ones that are going to protect you from these rogue males. And it makes me think about Isaiah. It was like Isaiah, the book of Isaiah, right? Somewhere in there it says something about 7 women taking a hold of one man, saying like, take away our reproach. Honestly, I really just think that's women coming to terms with the fact that we've birthed and married and had babies with monsters, and we're starting to take account for that, and our reproach would come from like our lack of repentance. We can't just blame males and be like, oh no, because I mean, and another thing too is like the mother wound. There are some really damaged women out there that are inflicting their imbalances, the byproduct of their imbalances, onto their children. Like, we're not innocent. The women aren't fully innocent here. If anything, we're like more responsible. Like this, so many abusers have wives that support them. And I said in one video before, like, you know, if you're wondering why melanated women are under attack the most, it's because of the mtDNA. So especially women, melanated women from America. And some of the white people you see in America, they're just a product of colonization. They have dark ancestors too, you know? And some white people that don't even have like, you know, obvious dark ancestors in their particular line were also enslaved. Like, I've got 2 different reports, like in my own ancestry, of like Irish and English indentured servants as slaves. Like, it's not, I don't know. And also, I mean, like, I've got a variety of skin colors in my own bloodline. So like from a variety of locations, countries, whatever. So I just don't see value in, I just don't see any wisdom or value in pegging everyone according to their skin color alone. I can kind of see value in hair texture, because I know that, back to the sulfur bonds, I think that the people who like are working with those sulfur bonds are working with an inversion, because I think they're mankind, not man. And because they're working with an inversion, they like want to eat their children and hurt their wives rather than like, or even their husbands, you know, because I think that women can work with that too, work with that inversion. So I think those sulfur bonds beget a type of narcissistic approach to things, because as my friend on Instagram was saying, they are hooked up to a motherboard. They're not tethered to the Most High. And that was really easily, readily accepted for me, because I saw that on a shamanic journey. Because you can see, if you ask to see, you can see that some people have cords, and I have seen them in different colors, and I don't know if that was a reflection of my particular state of awareness, or if it was because I very much like colors, and I associate a lot of things with colors, and I see colors. But I saw gold, silver, I saw gold and silver, like cords, you know, from like the crown to the Most High. And then I saw some that had like, it was like, it's almost like, what are those nets, like a seining net? Seining, when you're like put it in the water and you catch everything and you just kind of close the net. It was almost like they were trapped in a net with like a red cord. Just, it was like a leash, really. Like they were allowed to operate, but they were like, so, and their whole aura, their whole biofields were like in this like red netting. So at the time when I saw that many years ago, it was like 2018 or 2019, I was like, what am I looking at? And then later, as I learned, I think I was seeing the people with the sulfur bonds with the red netting, and then the people with the carbon bonds that are like working as earthborn people here, and they came in all colors. They had the silver or the gold cords. And that made me think too, you know, in narcissistic abuse, I know I'm jumping around a lot, but I do that. That's how my brain works, so stay with me. But in, you know, these narcissistic healing groups that I was taking part in when I was like struggling with the narcissistic abuse from my husband or my ex-husband. They were all describing this narc. They were calling it the narc smell, and they were saying that like it was kind of this weird like mildewy almost smell. And I smelled it too. And I always just kind of at the time, I thought it was just because I hated him so much. I was like, you fucking stink because I just fucking hate you at this point. But no, because my children smelled it too. And then I realized like he's probably the mankind. You know, he's probably just mankind. It's probably the beast, the biblical beast. And so fornication, I think, is actually having babies with those people with the sulfur bonds. And at this point, you know, there's so many hybrids. Like, all white people are hybrids, right? Because you're not going to have this color skin on the earth necessarily. Like, I'm not just going to, the earth isn't going to people this way. This was, you know, this was a result of some manipulation. And sadly, some people who are a product of this genetic manipulation are actually working with like orc bloodlines, troglodytes, the Nephilim, like they're like monsters of all kinds. Maybe they have tails. My friend online on the Instagram account that I'm tagging that I can't remember the name of on the top of my head, she was describing how they have hair that repels water rather than hair that accepts water, because water is information, and so that makes a lot of sense. And you know, I just can't ignore the things that everybody said in that narcissist group that they were healing from. Oh, there's like this distinct smell, there's a specific pattern that they follow, a specific behavior, like that you can almost just see it coming. It's like a calculated thing. They say the same things, they use the same techniques, they are hooked up to a motherboard, they're not ordained souls. And I really do think that some of those people are born and destined for that kind of destruction. And I think the Bible even mentions that there's a demographic that are just for destruction. I think they're called the biblical tares. I think they are sulfur bond people. I don't think they are carbon. I don't think they were earthborn. I don't think they were born through wombs. Anyway, I mean, like, statistically, I think, like 20% of people are born with a tail. So, I don't know. And it's got me thinking a lot, too, about the MTHFR gene mutation, because one of the symptoms of that is a sacral pit, which is almost like the opposite of a tail. So, like, is that an effect that has to do with the carbon or the sulfur? Is that what is that? I wonder. But I'm sitting with that for now. I'm just like sitting with that. But yeah, you know, you can eat and operate as somebody who wants to align with their carbon or not. I mean, like, if you want to align with your carbon and be a real human being, you're gonna be a real boy. You go outside, you get your feet on the earth, you get your face in the sun. I've been on this healing journey for food for many, many years, and I landed on living food, right? Like, that I can fully wrap my head around. Like, it's life, it promotes life. So, like, if you're gonna be having any kind of animal products, let it be like raw milk or cheese, you know, like let it come from a goat preferably, because the fat globules are the same, almost identical in size to the fat globules of man. So like cow's milk, like sometimes people will get a dairy intolerance even if it's not conventional dairy, because conventional dairy has been pasteurized, so the digestive enzymes have been removed. So a lot of times people have better luck with like raw dairy, preferably A2 dairy that still has the digestive enzymes in it. But even better would probably be goats, because it's kind of more in alignment with like the size of our natural bodies. But anyway, so the living food journey, and something that I'm dabbling and exploring per the suggestion of this really wise account online that is connecting dots for me, that I have been, collecting so many years. And it's kind of like was one of those things that I didn't want to admit, but then when she said it in a way that I couldn't really deny it anymore, I was like, yeah, I feel you. Is that she was mentioning how you drink water. Water is full of minerals, and minerals don't get digested, they get absorbed. And it made me think, okay, if minerals are getting absorbed, minerals are metal, we're doing all these heavy metal detoxes, but we are still supplementing minerals, and the minerals are metals. And then when you consider too what Sabrina Wallace is saying about how the AI industry is now able to hack the biofield and then communicate and actually affect the body from remote distances, it kind of makes you think, like, it made me think, okay, well, shit, we're filling our bodies with minerals that we might not even need. I mean, like, everybody's cooking with, like, cast iron. Like, we might not need this iron. Perhaps we don't, okay? Perhaps we're filling our bodies with metal. Perhaps we are being accessed from afar through AI tech, and that metal inside us is creating the feedback loop necessary so that we can be communicating with these, AI data centers or whatever. If the body dies and it's still full of metal, can it be reanimated remotely, do you think? I mean, we're not digesting these metals. We're supplementing them and they're getting deposited in our bodies. So they're going to be there still when we die. And so, like, they're accumulating in the brain. They're accumulating in the tissue, all tissue. So what makes you think that you couldn't possibly, like, reanimate a person who died with AI if their body's full of metals? Is it that far-fetched? Is that at all affected, or are the metals going to take the place? Perhaps the sulfur bond people that aren't going to be able to operate when the sun upgrades, perhaps those metals are going to be used to operate those bodies that can't otherwise operate. Because the sun's radiation is ramping up, the Earth's frequency is changing, and the carbon is gonna go with it. Or otherwise, if you're not carbon based, you're gonna get burned up. So, and because, and because when, like, the population is kind of getting browner, because that mtDNA that promotes the melanin production is, the carbon-based origin for life. I don't think white people, like, I don't know if people with white faces, like pale face, is gonna be there for that long. And I just also want to address, like, white and black are legal terms. Like, you can be a white citizen and then you, like, don't pay taxes or something. Like, a white state citizen doesn't pay taxes. If you look at Brandon J. Williams, I think you can get all the information there. Like, those people don't pay taxes, and like, citizens like that are black, they don't have rights. So, like, don't call yourself black or white, according to your skin color. Like, recognize that there's another layer of implications to that. I don't know. It's all really deep, and the fuckery is so interesting, because when you think about the idea of, like, brown, which shade of brown you're in, and, like, who you're gonna align with accordingly because of that, like, that's gonna be a trap for you. If you feel like you are a staunch feminist and you're like, fuck men, right? That's gonna be a trap for you, because men are gonna come in as the savior at some point. Mark my words, because some of us conscious women are raising little boys that are not going to stand for the state of the world. Promise. And that's how we repent, really. But yeah, some of those aren't. Not everybody's gonna be. Not all these bloodlines are gonna look the same way. And I don't even know how long. I mean, and some people even talk about the potential for the entire, for man to be wiped out by this, the implications of all this AI tech that's coming on, which I think is actually, I don't think that's going to happen, but I think it will also be another trap. You want to augment your body, inviting that kind of stuff in is making a contract with it that like you might not ever be able to get out of. And you don't even have to contract in that way. Like, it doesn't even really have to be like externally, like internally placed. Like, we're already subjected to it. They have been hacking the biofield, I think, since like the 60s at least, but at least this cycle, but I'm sure it's been like way longer. Like, anytime I say like, oh, they've been doing something since the 60s, it's probably also been done thousands and thousands of years ago. But I don't know, I think you should really, really get your ancestry done. It was really interesting. Look up like your name and your mother's line, your father's line. I found that I was connected to like white dragons, tribe of Dan, Atlanteans, I mean, like, we are all so mixed at this point. But again, back to it, if you are white or brown, or if you're light brown or dark brown or whatever, you should be eating for the carbon bonds. You should be eating living foods. And like I said before, like, I'm only learning about the potential that maybe water is not really the best to be drinking. People talk about like filtering water as if it's something that's like a big, big task, and it is. But it's fruit. Fruit's really the best water filter, because you have the water then goes to the earth and gets rid of what it doesn't need and accumulates what it does, and then goes into the fruit, and extra shit is even taken out in the leaves and the stem, and then you eat the fruit, and it's just like purely what fosters life. And I've talked before in other videos about like we need to get in alignment with not just fostering life, but foster that which fosters life, right? So grow fruit and eat it for your hydration and for your mitochondria and for your body to like have the instructions for life. It's just, I don't know. So in moving forward, I think women totally need to, as a collective, kind of take a little bit more responsibility for the state of the males in the world. And I know that we've been targeted by them. I mean, like males are women's apex predator, and men can come in and be the protector, so naturally I think that's the way the energy would go, but it requires a lot of humility and repentance on the part of women, and an acknowledgement that we fucked up in some ways, and I don't know, acknowledge that. Like, I had to get my ex-husband I had to get my children away from my ex-husband because he stated very clearly that he wanted to hurt them. And so I feel blessed in that way, because I prayed for all intentions to be revealed, and so they were, and so I knew how to act accordingly, and there was no pretense of me like co-parenting with this man. That wasn't an option. I was open to his visitation, and I said he could visit anytime he wanted, anytime the children wanted him to, and that I would make myself scarce. But like, I had no intention of subjecting my children to them because that was part of my path of repentance. And some people will vilify me for that, but I will say, if I raised a son who behaved the way my ex-husband did, where he insidiously presented as somebody he was not, so that he can attack a woman, get her pregnant, and actively try to ruin her life, I will fucking kill him. I will never put that product out into the world. And again, I'm joking, for all intents and purposes. I'm fully joking. I would never, ever hurt anybody. But I certainly, sure as shit, would not put that kind of product out into the world. I would not raise a person like that and make it somebody else's problem and perpetuate that ugliness. No. Not a chance. And if there were more women who are willing to kind of take that type of role, maybe we could collectively do our part in mitigating this kind of disastrous type of dynamic that we have playing out, this paradigm that is hurting so many people. I think that mothers need to step up. I think about this rat utopia. Okay, so there was like a rat utopia experiment. Sorry, my bells. A rat utopia experiment, and all these rats were given like all this instant gratification, anything they could possibly want. And the little rat society went to shit, and like mothers weren't taking care of their little rat babies, and there was like homosexuality, which then would obviously like finish the bloodline. So like that's not something that promotes life. They would like show really aggressive behavior or lack of a will to live or whatever, So like I think about motherhood right now, like we're all spread really thin, and it's difficult in some ways than it's probably ever been, but also there's so many things that are pulling us in so many different directions, and there are also so many crutches available for us. Like we don't even have to hold our babies if we don't want to. We don't have to nurse our babies. We don't have to sleep with them. We don't have to hold them. We don't even have to like read to them. We don't have to do anything. There's TV, there are gadgets, and there is daycare, and there's so many things. And every time we employ one of those things, it's at the cost of our child, because children need to have oxytocin, they need to have dopamine, they need to connect with their caregivers, they need to learn from them. And every time we put our needs first, because I get it, like the world is not easy on mothers, it's really hard to mother in the world as it is, but if you are taking the bait for these easy gadgets, it's at the cost, I want you to know 100%, it's at the cost of either your relationship with your child or your child's mental, emotional, or spiritual or physical health or whatever. Like putting them in a room to sleep by themselves, or not nursing them when your breast milk is pure magic. Staying with these terrible, terrible men, or if you leave them for your own sanity, subjecting your children to having to be around them without your protection, or like we need to take responsibility. And it means a lot of times taking responsibility, full responsibility as a mother, it means like getting a different job, moving to a smaller house so that you can have more funds and resources available for your presence, rather than having to go work to maintain something that isn't as important as your child. Hearing a mother say like, oh, I didn't breastfeed for my sanity, my heart breaks, because she's missing out on a bond. Her baby's missing out on not just a bond, but I mean, so much nutrients that would have been perfectly tailor-made for them. And so I feel sad because I get it, and I don't blame these women for making these choices. I know it's a result of the environment that they're in, but it makes me sad because that deficiency in care reverberates through society with disconnected, denatured people. Like looking at the male population, some of you did not get to spend enough time on the breasts as babies, and it's really fucking obvious. Some of you hate your mommies, and you take it out on the women that you target. You turn them into your moms, and then you abuse them in ways that you wish you could have, to your mom, because you're so upset with her for falling victim to that cremation of care where, maybe she mutilated your genitals, or maybe she didn't meet your needs and put you in a bouncy seat instead of holding you so that you could connect and co-regulate with her nervous system. You know what I'm saying? Or the mother wound manifests in really fucking stressed out mothers. How many mothers do you see making these videos online right now where they're just like crying and they're like, I don't want to fucking do this. This is so fucking hard. It is hard. It's hard. It's not easy. But also, we signed up for it. I'm not one of those people that thinks of parental sacrifice as actual sacrifice. It's your duty. It's your duty not just to your child, but to the world at large. We need regulated, healthy individuals, especially boys. So, now that I've probably pissed everybody off, I just think you should, moving forward, women, protect your wombs. I'm very, very suspicious of the surrogacy programs. I think that's a way to infiltrate demographics. You may be helping a family, but you may also be literally birthing monsters. And it even says that was absolutely, that's why women are the spoils of war, so that they get access to the womb. So take very seriously who you're giving access to your womb. And if you are a woman and you are in an abusive relationship, there's so many police officers are abusive, right? The only real sovereign citizens, I think, of the United States, police officers, I think by definition they are the only sovereign citizens. But anyway, statistically, I know many of them are abusive, and many of them are married. And so if you're a woman and you recognize that there is some abuse and the way your husband's behaving, if somebody's in the trunk and you're in the passenger seat, you have to do something about it. It doesn't, some women don't care who's in the trunk as long as they're in the passenger seat, but you're still subject to the same iniquity. You're just complicit in it. So don't be. All you can really do right now, in a world where it's not always so clear what is right and wrong and who is good or bad, you just have to have the wherewithal and the intact soul to say no. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's the goal here, but this feels wrong. And then let that guide you. It's there for a reason. But I think, this whole world is upgrading. And you're going to have to upgrade your consciousness and your empathy and your wisdom if you want to get through it. There are a lot of different types of beings here. Some of them really don't want you to be okay. They want you to die. Some of them want you to stay alive so they can feed off of your disease, whether it's emotional, spiritual, or physical. Some of them know that they are going down and they just want to set up all kinds of traps to take you down with them because they fucking hate divine men and women. And some of them are here to help, and we are in this together. And that's a collective that, like, I actually can't fucking wait to see what we're gonna create. When all this other bullshit is out of the way, I like to think about sustainability. I like to think about, like, what are we even supposed to really be eating? What really is life with a easy yoke and a light burden, you know? That's why I kind of have been moving away from cooked food, and I haven't even drank water in a week, you know? I think, like, I've just been living off of, like, fruit and raw milk, and I feel really good, actually. I haven't had a dip in my breast milk supply. I have still been running in the yard. I still work out. I actually feel more flexible and stronger than usual, so I'm gonna go with that for a while, and I'll report back. But I'm gonna tag some accounts that I mentioned below, just because you should be connecting these dots too. And they matter to you, they matter to me, they matter to us all. And on that note, I'm just gonna go ahead and stop there and take care and keep it easy, everybody.